Good to see you.
Yeah.
You're wearing the same shirt you were wearing last time.
I have a very limited wardrobe.
Yes. We are now in I want you to imagine, close your eyes and imagine, we are in mid-March now. We had a very successful live event, although because of some warp in the space-time continuum, we can't seem to summon the memory of that experience, but it did indeed happen. And we are convening to talk to you guys today about how to enter the spring season fit, healthy, engaged, excited about your fitness athletic journey.
Well, you made it through the winter, right? And you're starting to come out of the cave.
Yeah.
And it's spring and you're excited that the work you put in is now starting to be able to be used outside.
Right.
This thing called fresh air. And your skin is actually touching sun versus being layered up and covered.
Careful though, because March is a very tricky time of year for people that live particularly in the Northeast, because you think because it's March that winter is over, but there's still a couple last gasps of that,
some of the worst snowstorms
to get thrown in your direction before those flowers bloom.
Yeah.
So we don't want to give too much false hope here.
That's true, but that's the classic scene that you see in late March in the Northeast. One day it's 65, 70, and everybody's out running without their shirts on through Central Park. And then 2 days later, there's a snowstorm.
Oh, God bless them.
Yeah, good for them, yeah.
So, we took your advice, Chris, and we got through those winter months, staying engaged, as consistent as we could with releasing that pressure that we put on ourselves to be perfect. It's time to go outside. It's time to start thinking a little bit more precisely about that race that we've got our eye on, or perhaps the one that we're just now summoning the courage to sign up for.
Yeah.
And spring is on the horizon.
Yeah, here we are. And now it's more about what did I do over the winter that now will translate to the outside, right? And how do I reward myself with the hard work and the consistency that I put in, and put forth an event that I'm excited about, that I'm a little bit fearful of, that will really challenge me. But then also it's going to be fun. And I'm really happy on this end of the winter, in this case, of having done the work. And now I'm really excited to go do it. Like, it's now on the horizon. It's 6, 8, 12 weeks away. And so that's powerful. Now we can feel it. Now we can sense where we have the ability to train for it. We don't know we can do it yet, right? But we know we've put in good time, and that we're sort of going to have that slingshot effect out of the winter and push us forward to do something that we haven't done before. Right? Something scary, something exciting out there.
What are the mistakes that we want to avoid?
Well, one is to bite off more than we can chew, right? Yeah. We've made it through the hours of the winter, which are always limited. And now, because it's the spring and the days are getting longer, we think we'll have more hours magically available, right? The schedule will free up. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately, as masters athletes. So we want to be careful not to add too many more hours to our training that we think we'll be able to do, and then that create a false reality. And then in a couple of weeks, we're disappointed about what we just signed up for. So maybe it's a 50K instead of a 50 miler, right? Maybe it's the next progression from a 50K to a 50 miler, but not doing a 100 miler or a 100K. Maybe it's a 70.3 instead of an Ironman, right? Again, test the waters to see what you're capable of doing and gradually grow the schedule versus trying to all of a sudden jump into a 20-hour week where all winter you've gotten really good, your family's gotten good, your work's gotten good around this routine and schedule that you've created very diligently around 10 hours. We don't want to create any type of animosity in any respect, in any part of the three-legged stool, as I say, where they suddenly see, well, oh, now the training's really beginning. We knew it. Here it comes, right? You don't want that.
No.
You want that gentle sort of, all right, I'm going to go out. It's earlier.
Yeah, the gradual aspect of it is super important. And I know that I've confronted this in my own experience of coming into the spring months, excited about the season ahead and feeling engaged with my fitness. and having to resist the urge of going harder and going longer because it's a beautiful day out, right? And you've always been, reeling me back against my impulse, which is like, I want to go, and I think, in retrospect, looking back on that has been crucial in ensuring that I don't get injured or I don't get burned out or overtrained. We together were so careful in my Ultraman training years of erring on the side of less to avoid injury, particularly with run volume. Like, so careful in like being very incremental and diligent about not doing too much running too soon.
Yeah, it's important. Again, we want longevity, right? And we want you to be in this for a while. And in order to build that volume, that foundation ever so gradually, the only way that works is if you're actually able to do it healthy, right? And that keeps you motivated, that keeps you excited, it keeps the confidence growing for your event. And again, you're out there doing it. So the more you're out there doing it, you can have your own sensations. Avoiding injury is key, but also, as I was saying, avoiding creating tension around your training. Many of us have been in situations, I definitely have been in situations where I'm out there wondering what I should be doing at work right now, or wondering, actually, I should have been home right now for my family like this. And then we're compromised. We're not going to have as good of a training session because we're not as focused and diligent about it. We might even cut it short. And we're still not there at work and family. So now everything is done only 50% as well as we could have. So a gradual build creates those boundaries, and it creates that patience and that tolerance by everything in your world around you in order to, in a healthy, sustainable way, maybe grow the volume or just do it better, stronger, faster, smarter in the limited hours that you do have.
Yeah, it requires, we've talked about this before, but it requires a different kind of discipline, the discipline of restraint. Right? Which sometimes, at least I know for myself, can be harder than the discipline of going hard. Like, I don't have a problem getting up early and getting after it. Like, I'm not challenged in my motivation with respect to that, but I am challenged in holding back when I feel good or when I have the free time on this particular day, but it's not in my best interest physical preparation wise to, let that horse out of the barn.
Yeah. You touched on two things there. One is absolutely, there are days in the schedule where I tell all my athletes, if you have more time today, today's a good day for that, right? You have the week leading up. This is an endurance week. We're adding extra volume, low intensity all this week to get extra hours in. So there's times for that. There's other times absolutely where we need to show restraint. But the first part that you said is, I feel good today, I want to go harder. That's most often actually a bad idea, because there's an intent and a purpose to that workout, and blowing it out just because you feel good now compromises many workouts down the road.
I know, but it feels so good.
It feels so good. It's a temporary hit. And then you pay the price down the road. Whereas we have maybe a workout in 3-4 days where it's way more important to do that intensity, to do that harder effort, to do that higher speed. And by blowing it out today because it felt so good is never the ideal answer.
Right.
You want to see how that fits into the bigger picture.
Well, I'm lucky enough to have somebody like you to hold me back or to hold me to a certain kind of plan. Most people don't have the luxury of working with a coach. So for the people that are listening who have a goal, a fitness goal, a race they're preparing for, some kind of challenge, who are out there trying to figure it out on their own, how can you counsel them to best navigate these treacherous waters of trying to figure out what's best on a particular day to do?
Yep. For much of that, I always suggest write down your intentions for the week ahead. One long bike, one short bike, one high intensity bike, let's say. One long run, one short run, one high intensity run, so that you have a skeleton for the week of what you want to accomplish. And then a lot of times how you schedule that depends on your own life schedule, let's say maybe the weather, but also how you lead into the week of, well, I need that. Everybody knows for intensity, I can't be completely shelled and exhausted. So once you put that intention into it, and you've done that a few weeks in a row or a few times where you've seen it done successfully, then you get better at sort of putting that skeleton together for yourself. And as we've talked about before with regards to a journal, you know then, okay, last time after an intense workout, I needed 2 days so that I actually enjoyed the workout again, that long run or that long ride. I mean, there's so many athletes that I come across in training logs where they wonder why they were cranky and didn't enjoy their long ride because they shuffled the week around and put the high intensity the day before a long ride. And then they're just miserable, right? And now you're out there for 4 or 5 hours on a bike and you're already tired the first few pedal strokes. It just sets you up for not enjoying the training as much as you can, as well as it should be, because some of the best athletes in the world, they love their training the way it's structured because they know their body's responding to each one of them and they feel good doing it.
What are there like resources that you can point people towards who are attempting to get ready for a certain kind of race? Like, I'm just thinking, I'm trying to live in the mind of somebody who's kind of new to all of this, like doesn't even really necessarily know what periodization is, or even how to like why one long ride a week and not two, just the very basics of how to approach, whether it's an obstacle course race or a 5K or, the 29.029 or something brand new. Where can people just learn the fundamentals about how to approach these sorts of challenges?
A lot of it can be found online, right? And a lot of it in publications, magazines, even books are out there. My first 5K, my first Olympic distance triathlon, my first trail run, things like that. And then it becomes important to truly listen to your body, to see how your body responded to that super simple plan. And the other thing there is, even with the most simple plan, you want to see how your body responds to it, how it feels to it, and not hold yourself to the exact, well, on Thursday it says to do this, right? It's okay. Like, see how your body and your schedule and your life responds to it and just continue to grow from there. So let's say it has 4 hours in the first week of training, right? 4 30-minute workouts with a couple of stretching exercises and so forth. Well, you don't have to do that exactly the way they say it. Just take the basic ideas and grow with it. And eventually you might get to a point where you're actually adhering 100% to it, to a shorter week or something like that. But again, keep yourself from judging yourself too harshly on how you're progressing in your own exercise, in your own training. It's yours and it's your own special time. So use that to say, this is my intention for today. This is what I'm looking to get done. And I will do my best to get it done.
Yeah. I think that's sound advice. I mean, one of the things that I had to learn in my swimming career, when you're young, you progress very rapidly, right? And like every week you can go faster in the pool than you could the week before. And you have a similar experience when, as a master athlete, you get involved in a new sport like triathlon or long distance running, something you've never done before. You can see pretty quick results, but at a certain point, that curve is going to taper a little bit, and you have to get used to the fact that you're not going to you can't like go hard every day. You're not going to get a PR every workout. And mentally, I think that can be a challenge for somebody who's new to this, thinking like, well, I'm not getting better, or trying to understand that every workout has a purpose, and those purposes are not always going to be, it's not about like going as fast as you can or breaking the ceiling on your last performance.
Yeah. It's like a puzzle, right? I mean, some puzzle pieces are nice. They're the outside pieces. They really fit nicely, and you can see what the puzzle is going to look like, right? Based off the outside edges. But then these individual puzzle pieces that you put into this 1,000-piece puzzle, they might not mean anything, but they're a critical component to what the puzzle will look like, the image will be when it's done. And that's a lot how workouts work, right? Those puzzle pieces, they have to fit, right there. Otherwise, it's not going to fit into the picture that you're going to end up with in the end. And our first races and our first few months in doing any type of athletic endeavor are those edge pieces. They fit nice, and you can see the outline of what it's going to look like. And you feel really good having completed that outside edge of a puzzle. But then the hard work begins. All the individual pieces that sort of, you start the grind of those little pieces that have to fit together that make no sense.
Mm-hmm. And I think also when you're new and you don't know anything, you're going to be more likely to want to adhere to whatever program you got off the internet or in some book because you don't know anything different. But as you progress, if you are doing the journaling and that kind of introspective work of connecting with yourself to really gauge how you feel and how this is working for yourself, you can slowly begin to take more and more ownership of that trajectory. So you can kind of go off script from time to time and experience what it's like to push the edge here, hold back here, and gauge how your body responds to that.
And you'll know your body well enough that you know, I'm overdoing it today, but I know the next 2-3 days I'm going to pay for it and I'll go easier. Mm-hmm. And I know enough about my body. I've learned from it. I know how to listen to it, and it works out well like this, right? I mean, a lot of athletes train by the weather, right? Because let's say they're outside athletes. They don't have treadmills or a gym membership. So today it's going to rain. Well, I'm going to run today, or I'm going to swim because I don't want to be out on the bike in the rain. Or it's sunny tomorrow, so I'm going to do my long ride tomorrow. It actually doesn't fit that well, but they'll modify well enough through their week in order to get it done, right? And I tell a lot of my athletes, the first step is to get the week done how it's written, right? That's ideal in a perfect world. But then beyond that, get the totals of the week done. Right? Shuffle around, make sure the order is not too much quality in a row. But if you can get the 16 hours done like that versus how I wrote it, that's fine, as long as we keep the principles of not too much quality in a row. And then we start pulling out pieces if they can't even make that, right? Where it's like, all right, let's take that easy run out of there and just make it a complete rest day. Let's take that easy swim out of there, make it a complete rest day, or sleep in that morning. So that you're just getting the 4 or 5 critical workouts in for that week. Because again, at the end of the day, it's about, all right, we're successfully still moving forward, getting the key concepts in. And then next week, when life frees up a little bit and there's less stress on us, then we'll get in it all. We'll get it all in again, right? I say so often, training should not be an additional stressor in your life, right? You do this to get away from stresses, to exhale, to de-stress and connect with yourself and self-care and go inside. So if training creates the stress, you're not going to have that outcome. And over time, you're going to avoid that stress, and then you're not working out.
Oh, that explains how I've navigated this past fall and winter. I mean, we were joking at the outset about, nice to see you again, because we're taping back-to-back episodes. It's actually November 27th, the same day we taped the last Coach's Corner. And I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of talk about what this experience has been like for me, and to talk about kind of what you're getting ready for this year. Because I made a conscious decision to not race this past year, to focus on other areas of my life that I felt needed my full attention, or more of my attention, I should say. Because to train intensely towards a specific fitness or race goal I knew well enough, would create more stress than I could manage at the time, given my other goals in my life. And so I just said, I'm not going to put that pressure on myself. I've stayed engaged with my fitness, but it certainly hasn't been structured or formalized in any way. And I'm happy with that decision, because I've made a lot of progress in other areas of my life that I wanted to be focused on. But I'm also not, I like it when I feel super fit. Yeah. I like it when I'm ready to go. And I miss that, and I'm anxious to get back to that.
I'm putting a book in front of him right now. that is sort of where your expectations need to maybe be adjusted here, Rich, right? Like you don't have to win these events or be at the top or represent as your old self to still take part in organized events.
Did I give you the impression that I was delusional?
I just know you're an athlete through and through. And for you to put challenges out there, you have been successful in the past with getting it done. And I know you add extra pressure with your life schedule and so forth, but it doesn't have to be quite on switch, off switch. And your off switch doesn't mean you're not doing anything. It means you're still running and cycling occasionally and of course swimming. But where you work progressively towards something, there's a healthy medium in between, right? This is what
has eluded me my entire life and spills over into every facet of how I live, which is trying to find a way to approach these things in a more balanced way where where I let go of that. Because I have this thing where it's like, I don't want to show up at a race unless I'm at 110%. And that's just, it's ego. It's a whole number of things. And that's the bigger mountain to climb than to train super hard for a race.
But that's the one you want to lean into. That's going to make you uncomfortable. Right?
It will. It's super uncomfortable to show up like, I only trained, I'm at 60%.
And that's I'm still fine. You know how many masters athletes do that?
Most of them, the vast majority of them. Right?
And so I think there's an opportunity there for something where you might want to explore that a little bit.
This is what I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah. And that's where it becomes interesting too, where it's like, you know what? As I've said in the past, helping you navigate through that schedule. We've tested it a little bit a few times. And also for Attila, we definitely did test it. But again, we had a vision of how well we wanted to do. We wanted to represent well and so forth. We had talked about that. But I think there's a space there where we can have you fit enough that you feel really good about who you are competing at that given event. And I said to you earlier, I would never put you into an environment where it's the super measured, like everybody like robots competing the event. That's not who you are. But something that you feel challenged by, that you respect, but also that you feel really fit and good about going into, not your best, right? And you in the past would have done more, but you go, you know what? This is who I am now. This is the fittest I can be given my life, my age, my circumstances, my schedule in the now.
Yeah.
Right. And that is the one I want to explore.
I know. It's like I just get uncomfortable even talking about it because it's like I am the on-off switch guy, whether it's doing the podcast or writing a book or being a parent. Like I go all in on one thing, everything gets blocked out, and it's not a good healthy recipe.
There's a lot on the periphery that can be really, really exciting and fun and beneficial, because that's what they say about in that book Drive. Daniel Pink, I think. He talks about when we reward and focus motivationally on one thing, we miss a lot of the opportunities that come along with it on the periphery. And this is the same thing for you, where you might be surprised how good you are when you're asked to apply all your fitness knowledge, strategy, intelligence to do the event, versus just knowing you've out-trained the others, right? And I think your knowledge and your experience and doing this for many, many years, I think you'd be surprised how much better you'd be than what you think you would not be, right, at the event, as well as how much you would enjoy it. Because without any pressure, without any type of I can only be who I am here at this starting line.
Right.
And that'd be fun.
That is, it's weird how I interpret that as a greater challenge than to go all in on preparing for a race. Because that I know how to do.
That's our younger version of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? But that's what we
It's a younger version, but it's also, it's a mentality thing, right? And you, as an Olympian, if I say to you, Chris, you're going to go to this race, but you're only allowed to train, 8 hours a week.
Yeah. I've done a few trail runs like that, right? Falling into the anonymity of the field is there's something very liberating about that.
Right.
And
you completely let go.
You can completely let go, and you
result.
feel your body just sort of exhaling and absorbing the day. And it was the same thing with Attila for us.
Right.
I had an amazing experience at Attila when we had to walk a lot.
Well, I forced you to let go of expectations.
But we still, I experienced that day totally different than if we had been with blinders on the whole time. Right. And I've had quite a few adventures like that where it's like, had I just tried to grind it out from the very beginning, I would have met the people I've met. Right. 29029, I did that event in Utah. One of the best experiences about that, I should describe what it is.
Yeah.
It's basically they rent out a resort for a weekend, and the challenge by the 29029 group.
You should say it's Jesse Itzler, who's been on the podcast a couple times. Yeah. This is his company, and he's got a team, and they rent out these mountains and curate these amazing experiences.
This was Snow Basin in this. And so you hike up the mountain from the base to the top, and they take the gondola down. And you save your legs like that. It's brilliant. And you get to ascend to whatever mountaintop you designate, all the way up to Everest. Vertical.
Which is 29029.
Exactly. And so I did that event in August of this past year. And sure, could I have done all 13 ascents? I think it was 13 or 16 ascents. Yes. But I chose not to because I wanted to get to meet the people going up the mountain every single time. They weren't famous athletes. They weren't, they hadn't trained for it. They put themselves completely into a vulnerable place and tried one, and then two, and then 4 or 7 or 10 ascents. And getting to meet those people out there and taking my time and having nice conversations with them was incredibly meaningful to me. And I still get emails from people thanking me and that it was a great time because we got to connect as humans as we were doing this endurance event.
That's cool. I'm so bummed I wasn't able to go.
Yeah.
I really would have liked to have gone. I definitely want to go to, I think that he's got 2 of them coming up in 2019.
Vermont and Utah. And what's really cool about it is because you take that gondola down, you save your legs, you save your joints, your quads don't hurt the next day, nothing. The part that...
Well, for you, because I know a lot of people who went and thought, well, you get to take the gondola down. It's no big. It's not, how hard can it be?
It's hard on the calves and on your glutes because it's so steep at times that you're hunched over, sort of hiking up, pushing on your knees and legs to get up. So, but it's different than the pounding of downhill versus the stress of uphill.
Right.
But it's a very well run event. Completely supported, a lot of motivation, really cool, unique things that they do about it.
And they create like a village at the base, right?
Exactly.
You stay in tents or something like that?
In these great yurts that are super comfortable, sort of pretty plush. It's glamping at its best. And and then meals and all that. And every time you come down the gondola, you stamp your name on with a branding iron, your name or the logo of the event next to your name of each time ascent you've made. And so when you get to the top, you get a special jersey for the final ascent, and everybody cheers you on. It's really well run. Cool. It's a fun event. Yeah.
Did he do panels and things like that? Were you part of that?
Yeah. Well, we were part of a nutrition panel, mindset panel, training panel, and all that. Yeah.
That's cool.
So that was a lot of fun. But again, it was one of those events where you can come in, not have a lot of training, and really exceed your expectations on what you're capable of because you're with people who will want to just see what they're capable of. You're not alone. You're not vulnerable. You're not embarrassed. You can just go do. There's people who did 1. There's people who ran 16 of them or 13 of them. And so there's the whole spectrum of athletes, but everybody gets cheered and definitely unique.
Was Colin O'Brady at that one?
No.
Oh, he wasn't. I know he did one of them.
Probably the Vermont one, the first one. Snowmass.
So he is, as we speak, traipsing across Antarctica unassisted.
Talk about a curated adventure.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't stop. I mean, the guy broke the Explorer's Grand Slam world record and then went into some other crazy speed record thing and then went straight to Antarctica. It's unbelievable.
Of course, that's an extreme example, but this is what I like to get across to
perhaps
everybody.
The most extreme, but yeah.
But how everybody has a new normal waiting for them, right? You might be off the couch doing your first 5K. You've done the 5K, and now you say, okay, I can do that. The new normal becomes, let me go for a 10K. Let me go for a half marathon. You look back and go, 5K, right? So your new normal just continues to shift. Now, of course, like you were talking about earlier, we all reach plateaus where the improvements aren't that dramatic, but our new normal is constantly moving. Our new normal with regards to nutrition, with regards to mindset, with regards to distances, with regards to training hours. There's new normals happening all the time. Meditation, how we go about it, the time we spend meditating. 3 minutes used to be impossible. Now you can do 20 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. Or an hour, or just wander off. So that's part of what I really like to tell athletes and people that I talk to on a daily basis is create your own new normal, right? And that's the beauty of training, that you're creating a new normal.
And that new normal then becomes applicable in all these other areas of your life because it expands your concept, your perception of what you're capable of. Yep. And once you crack that door open in a physical sense, in an athletic sense, you become more amenable to the idea that you can break barriers in your professional life, that you can have better relationships. It's incredible the applicability of what you learn, not just skill wise, but just mindset wise. Yep. And how that can improve your life.
It bleeds into all areas of our life. And that confidence and the ability to motivate yourself to go do something that you had an intention to do is phenomenal, right? It's truly what makes us human beings, right? There's not a lot of other beings on this planet that set forth to do something and then methodically go about doing it, right? It's like they're either instinctually doing it or they learn it in a different way, but not like we do as humans. Mm-hmm. And so again, it's a unique trait that I would want everybody to learn about and take advantage of. What is the challenge? What is something that scares me? And how can I go about learning internally and externally, physically and mentally as I'm on that journey towards that adventure?
Mm-hmm. What are you excited about personally this year in terms of your own? What have you signed up to do? What are you getting ready for?
Well, it's November 27th. Yeah. On December 1st, I find out if I got into Western States. That's still a ticket out there. I have a very, very low chance.
You've never done that before,
never done
right?
It. And I've always wanted to do it, but I have not stuck with my entries every year. And so I reset the clock. So I only have a 2% chance to get in. Whereas if you continue to put in every year, then it's a Monaco style lottery. It goes up.
Right.
So very low chance. But as a backup, on the same exact weekend, I set up that I'll do Alaska Man, which is an iron distance race, but more extreme location, 48-degree water. You start at 3:30 in the morning, longest day of the year, January, longest weekend day of the year. And you swim 2.4 miles in that water. Then you bike, it's a little bit over 112, it's 113 miles uphill to a mountain on the other side of the Seward Bay. And then, then you climb, then you run up a mountain for 27 miles.
Yes, similar to Norseman.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of the series. And just this year, they introduced that Norseman is now the world champion qualifier. These are all qualifiers for Norseman being the world championships.
I see.
Because
world championships of what? Extreme crazy triathlons?
Yeah. Okay. So they now have 10 or 11 of them. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
They have Canada Man, they have Alaska Man, they have Hawaii Man.
Celt Man, I think.
There's Celtic Man, all kinds of Swiss Man, Hungaro Man. I mean, I have athletes sending me examples of extras from all around the world. I'm like, I'm done. I'm good. I'm staying in the same time zone in Alaska.
I just remember watching a video of Norseman. Was it Tim DeBoom who won that year? Yeah. And it was the most epic thing.
Yeah.
Super hard.
Yeah, Tim is he made that race quite famous because that was when he was winning Hawaii Ironmans, and so he went off and did that, or just right after it, and he won that, and it created this huge curiosity around, again, adventurous Ironmans. So, I've done 38, 40, I don't know how many more Ironmans in my life, and so I'm ready to try a different type of Ironman. So, and
you this past weekend was Ultraman. Did you follow that at all? You
did
tried
a little
to
bit
get
on
in
the periphery. Yeah.
Would you be?
I'll put in again.
You'll put in again.
Yeah. Hopefully, if she sees my name on there enough times, she'll say, "This guy."
Would you do one of the qualifier Ultramans though, like Ultraman Canada? Or
I would say no, and this is why, because again, like we talk about, life's busy schedule. I'm not going to set myself up for success with work and family by training for 2 of these in a row, right? I just know myself, and I know the tax it'll put on my direct community, work, life, family, so forth, that for me to do that would be asking too much.
Yeah.
And I also know my body, quite honestly. I've been doing this for a long time, and to go through 2 of those training cycles in a matter of a year would be a lot. I mean, I could defer to the following year. Let's say you do an Ultraman in 2019 and it automatically qualifies you for 2020. But that means I'm doing 2 years of this type of training. And there's other adventures I want to do.
You're so well suited to that race though.
Yeah.
I would really love to see you uncork it on that course.
I know, but I'm going to be 50 next year.
That's all right, man.
I'm not getting any younger.
None of us are.
And those guys are getting faster.
Yeah, the guy who won this year is 33, I think. Yeah. But I think like Miro Krieger was up there again. He still ran under 7 hours. I think he's like 55 or something like that by now.
Crazy. Those guys are good though at that distance because they've done it a few times, like Miro especially.
Miro goes every year.
Yeah, so he knows the course, he knows how he needs to train for it. It's sort of like me for Ironman, right? Last year I was able to just go do Whistler out of my training, and I wasn't in the fittest place of my life, but again, I've done enough of them where I can navigate my energy for 10 hours well enough that I'll know where I am at the finish.
Yeah. All right. Should we talk about nutrition a little bit?
Sure.
What is your general guidance
in life or for the training?
Well, for the training. Training specific. People are like, what do I eat? What do I eat when I ride my I mean, I get this question all the time. What do I eat when I ride my bike? What do you bring with you when you go running? Yeah. That kind of stuff.
Well, biking and running are going to be 2 different things, right? Because of the stress on the stomach. Biking, you're in a sort of smoother situation without the rattling and the bouncing and the jumping around. So I often say Cliff Bars or something like that, something solid. I'm a big believer in solids as much as I can. On training rides, I'll actually make little sandwiches even and things like that, fruit and little sandwiches, because my body will be able to process that, and the intensity isn't that high that I need to have anything sugary or too glucose based, right? That's just going to go glycogen based right into my blood. For shorter intervals and cycling classes and 90 minutes or less, I rarely take any food. So what do I recommend? I recommend that athletes create a stomach and a habit that they know that they're suited to take on all kinds of different foods, because something will always go wrong, right? So if you think you're great, every weekend after an Ironman, I get a race report from somebody that says, I thought I was fine on Cliff Bars or Power Bars, but after 7 of them, I couldn't get another one down, or after 4 of them or whatever. And so I want my athletes to have as much range as possible from it. I've had the shot, the gels. I've had the chews. I've had the bars. I've had the potato chips. I've had the Oreo cookies. I've tried it all, and I've narrowed it down to a plate of food that I know I can bring to any race. That's what weekends are for, to test and train all the possible foods so that you have a good list of items that you know you're safe with, that you can find anywhere in the world or bring anywhere in the world and have a successful nutrition plan.
I have this thing where I've eaten so many bars over the years that just thinking about eating a bar right now makes me like I've gone more and more to just real food because it's like I can't handle the sugar, or I don't know what it is, but like I have this Pavlovian kind of reaction when you start talking about like that performance nutrition stuff.
Yeah, but that's a great example of what happens because you went over the edge thinking I must eat more Cliff Bars for your events, whether it was for Epic 5 or for Ultraman. That's why I want athletes to, when they're done with it, to stop it, because you're going to be more successful with fueling over a long period of time if you eat up until when you can of that type of food and then move on to another option, because we want calories in you. You need to fuel, right? On average, I tell people 200-ish calories, 150 to 200 calories an hour for women, and 200 to 250 calories an hour for men during cycling and running events, right? So that adds up over many hours, right? That's a Cliff Bar an hour right there. But again, you want to have a good knowledge of a variety of foods that work for you. And that way you can sort of open that special needs bag that has options in it. You can get to a race at an ultra run where they have anything from potato chips to Smarties to M&Ms to peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all around there, right? So that you can take in food that you need. And I agree with you. All the sugars, no matter how much somebody has a sweet tooth or they say they'll be fine, at some point your body just stops. Your taste buds say no more.
I was great on the Ironman, and then I got to mile 18 and I couldn't stop barfing. Exactly. Like I had 50 gels over the last 12 hours. It's like...
But then there's winners and there's athletes out there, and they're not just saying that for their sponsors. They truly do 25 gels, 30 gels. They're able to. And so nutrition is the ultimate N+1, right? That where you are the only sample. If you know what works for you and you've tested in a variety of temperatures and conditions and intensities, that you know your palate and how it's going to work for many hours, 10 to 30 hours, then stick with that.
You can't test enough. I mean, you can't overstate how important it is to constantly be experimenting in your training with this. Even the very, very best, the most elite of athletes, endurance athletes out there, run into problems when they, miscalculate it because of whatever external reason and have issues. So the more, the better in terms of that experimentation. But I think also it's worth noting, I'm interested in what you think about this. I know that when I go out on the trails around here, I see so many people who I know they're going out for 45 minutes or something like that. And they've got their vest and they're just loaded to the gills with all kinds of bottles and all. It's like, you don't need all that stuff. Somebody's marketed to you to convince you that you can't leave your house without literally enough nutrition to survive for a weekend.
Well, in some cases, I'm not saying this is all the cases. In some cases, they might be testing weight and running with the gear that they want to do, because I'll have my athletes do that too, but not with the food. I'll have them put water bottles in there for weight, right? Because for long endurance events, you got to get used to that self-supported weight. But there is also this industry brain feeding, right? Where they've told us you need to eat, and drink, and electrolytes, and salt. And people overdo that dramatically. You're right.
Killian told me he goes out for 7 or 8 hours without anything.
That makes my head explode as a coach. That just makes me, because others will hear this.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And then think that that's okay. And he has trained his body,
of course,
to go without food. I had a coach way back in the day. He asked me to go out for 2-3 hour bike rides, not eating at all. He wanted to build up the tolerance that you can go on less. Luckily, I got away from that theory, because that is completely not true. Our body needs fuel to operate. And even at the lower intensities where you're burning primarily fats, you technically have enough storage on your body for about 1,000 days of exercise without food. But you can't utilize that, and your intensity is way slower than that. So no, don't go out for 7-hour runs without food.
Right.
And the other interesting thing that you said is that the palate also changes over the years. So what you might have liked 5 years ago and needed changes as you become fitter and stronger and do different distances or even the same distance. What worked for me 5 years ago in an Ironman, I no longer eat that. I've completely turned mine upside down because it was too much. Then I went to too little. Then I had to up it again. You're constantly testing, like you said.
Let's talk about swimming.
Yeah.
So this might get granular for people that aren't interested in this, but if you're listening and you're a triathlete or you're interested in a swim run or becoming a master swimmer, I think it is worth spending a few minutes talking about this because the most common thing that you hear, I'm sure you do, is people who are interested in exploring this world of multisport, but they didn't grow up swimming. They don't really know how to swim all that. They may know how to swim in general, but have never put themselves in any kind of competitive swim environment. And it's very intimidating. And I think it scares a lot of people away from a sport that they might enjoy if they could wrap their head around a way of, learning how to get comfortable in the water.
I love master swimming programs from that aspect because you get some coaching and there's a social aspect of it and there's a structure to it. There's many choices usually during the week to get in the pool. And it's not like these are all former NCAA swimmers at every master's workout.
It's intimidating, though. It's scary for somebody who's never done anything like that before.
Absolutely. But so is doing anything else, right? And having an embracing, warm community that all started as beginners at some point, maybe not the NCAA guys at the far end of the pool who don't even remember when they learned how to swim. But in every master's program I've ever come across, there's always a few swimmers who you can see they just started a couple of months ago. And you'll swim with them and they'll be open to having you in their lane and growing from there as a swimmer. And you get instruction with it too.
Yeah. It takes a little bit of courage, though, to kind of walk through that door. I mean, I remember when I first was thinking, like, maybe I want to do a triathlon, and I was terrified to just walk in the door of Helen's Bikes, which is like kind of a Tony high-end bike shop here in Los Angeles. And I'm like, I swam at Stanford. Like, I'm an athlete. And I was like, I didn't know the questions to ask. And those guys in there, they're pro cyclists or whatever. It's very intimidating.
All the sports like that are intimidating. When you walk into most of those shops, probably trail running the least because they're sort of pretty chill
They're
anyway.
A lot of pot.
Yeah. But triathlon and cycling and swimming for sure. And the aspect with swimming is that, I mean, you have a evolutionary response to drowning, right? And a fear of that. So it makes sense. And that's why I always recommend a master's program where you can stand and take your time and not be intimidated because of what they're doing, but more because you're comfortable just being there. And that's the social aspect, right? Where people just are having fun.
Yeah. I think beyond that, though, it's important to make sure that you're getting instruction. Like a lot of masters coaches, they're creating a workout, but sometimes there isn't a lot of individual attention. So I think it's if this does intimidate you or you feel like you really want to progress, to find somebody who can give you some one-on-one. Because there's nothing like having somebody just look at your stroke and give you a couple things to work on, and then a couple weeks later give you a couple more things to work on, because you really can only master one or two tweaks at a time. And generally somebody who doesn't have a background in this will have 20 things wrong with what they're doing. And you got to really take it step by step, and be patient with it. I think the biggest mistake that most inexperienced swimmers and triathletes make is they're so worried about their conditioning and their fitness that they just want to get in the water and swim back and forth for a certain amount of time to feel like they got a workout in.
They look at their watch to make sure that they get in 1,200 straight.
There's no structure to the workout. There's no real intentionality behind it. And at the same time, they're not working on their fundamentals or their stroke technique in such a way that they would be better off just scrapping that whole program and starting from zero and spending, 3 months on nothing but drills to perfect their stroke, because they're fighting the water, they're inefficient, they're creating all this resistance, they're expending all this energy they don't need to because they don't understand how to make the water work for them.
Yeah. There's levers in that water for us, to make us work less and swim faster. There's also a few programs out there. I really like the Swim Smooth program.
I never heard of that.
With regards to learning how to swim, they have animation, and so a lot of it that you can swim on your own, and then you have certified Swim Smooth coaches around the country, the world in this case, who you then can schedule video sessions with and one-on-one time with. And what's really cool about those Swim Smooth certified coaches, that's a lot to say, is that they run a master's program on the side anyway that you could join, or they'll know where you can find a program to work with. But again, like you were saying, seeing yourself swim and then working with animation and then getting one-on-one instruction, combine all three of those, you're going to learn a lot quicker than just on your own.
Yeah. And it's different from running or riding a bike. It really is technique driven. It's much more like learning how to swing a golf club than it is how to ride a bike.
I compare swimming the way we swim in the pool a lot to track running. The times are shorter, just like that, 40, 60 seconds. And most of the time for a track athlete at the track is drills, warming up, stretching, doing a few short bursts, and then being done, and focused 100% on technique. And swimming is similar. Warm up, a variety of drills, a main set with some bursts and efforts, and then warm down, focused on technique all the time. And so you wouldn't go to a track if you want to be a 400-meter runner and just run 400 meters over and over and over again at a slow speed. You want to have variability and drills and bounding and strength and explosiveness and drills all built into that workout, and similar in swimming.
And if you're not coming from a swimming background and you're interested in triathlon, you have to understand that you don't need to go fast. And you're not going to be competitive anyway because you didn't grow up with the sport. So you need to forget about all of that and understand that the goal or the priority should be getting out of the water feeling good, learning how to swim efficiently enough so that you are moving forward in the water with some degree of aptitude and efficiency, but that you're getting out excited about the next stage.
Yeah.
You're not going to be in the front pack. Forget about all of that kind of stuff.
Which I feel most don't have that expectation, but they do have an expectation that it would go better or come. There's a different strategy.
But you would have to, the amount of time you would have to put into it doesn't make sense. And ultimately, it doesn't matter because the swim, the way triathlon works, with the exception of Ultraman, the swim is almost irrelevant.
Yeah. It's a means to an end. I call swimming the first part of a triathlon. It's a longer warm-up. It's a means to an end. It's designed to get you from the starting gun to T1 and nothing else, right? And so if you can get through the swim efficiently, using the least amount of energy, but still in the time that you wanted to, in order to then have a more significant bike and run, that's the goal, right? And a lot of swim coaches, and this is my biggest issue. I don't have a lot of issues with swim coaches, but my biggest issue with swim coaches is that they teach triathletes how to be swimmers versus triathlon swimmers or open water swimmers. And there are clear differences between the two, right? One is more shorter speeds, shorter bursts in speed for 100s and 200s and 400 meters, let's say. That's a total of 6 minutes, maybe. Whereas if you're getting ready for 30, 40, 50, an hour and a half worth of swimming, it's a different workout, right? I don't need you to perfect your butterfly backstroke and brushstroke. I don't need you to have good streamline off the wall and 2 dolphin kicks off the wall. I don't need your flip turns to be great if you're going to do open water swimming. I need you to be able to get through that efficiently, like you said, in order to have an effective bike and run.
And to be able to maintain your equanimity and your composure in a stressful situation where there's people kicking you in the head and there's a lot of chaos, to be calm and relaxed.
Well,
and to understand how to sight. You have to be able to raise your head and see where you're going.
You're often dragged along by a lot of other swimmers when you're in the middle of the pack. So you sort of know that part okay. You just sort of follow all the minnows. But the part of being comfortable when you swim is also important, because wetsuits can feel incredibly restricting, and a lot of great athletes get panic attacks, anxiety, and almost have to stop the swim because they have shortness of breath and the whole thing. And what I always say there, understanding the dynamics of a wetsuit is very, very important, because a dry wetsuit, the liner hasn't gotten wet yet to absorb the moisture so that it properly stretches and sticks to your skin and can become a second skin. When it's dry, it's just a tight plastic suit constricting your breathing around your neck and everywhere on your body, and it's pressure on your body. And we have a response to that, same as when we hit the water. Everything seizes in general. It's a response of our way back of our great ancestors that can make the swim in the beginning very, very panicky.
I still am not used to wetsuits that cover the shoulder. Unless it's freezing and we're in Sweden, I would rather have a sleeveless. That restriction around the shoulders, I just cannot acclimate to that.
I've never swum without them because I love that extra buoyancy of my arms.
What do you think is the future of Ironman? When you look at these races, there's so many of them now. They sell out a year ahead of time, thousands and thousands of people, and you see these clips on the internet, or if you track this stuff, where they're just massive packs of people. It looks like a giant drafting peloton. I mean, what is going on?
The sport has definitely changed, and it's become an everyman sport. The uniqueness of an Ironman and a 70.3 has definitely shifted. It's still quite unique, but I think Ironman in general knows the customers it's getting, a certain type of person. And when I say the customer, I'm talking repeat customers, ones that do it for many years. And I think Ironman and their parent company is completely happy and fine with that. They're not willing to spend the dollars or investments in order to grow that. They have a very religious following in that space. And everybody else is sort of on the periphery. They do it once or twice, and then they either go on to other adventures or they move on to something else, right? And so the future, I think, is those people who are already in it and love it and are religious about it. They're going to continue to accept those price increases and that drafting type of racing, because that is what it is. It's their sport.
But I think that is now going to be challenged with future generations of young athletes who now have a lot of options.
Absolutely.
In terms of what they want to specialize in and what they want to explore and experience. Whereas the people that are kind of from our age bracket and above, it was Ironman was it.
That was the ultra endurance.
And there was a cultish sort of allegiance to this, and a fervor around these races that created a lifestyle for a lot of people, which is great. Amazing thing. But if you're a 24-year-old aspiring endurance athlete, or even younger, now you can canvas this landscape, and there's so many options. So what is that? How does that bode for Ironman 20 years from now?
In my personal opinion, I don't think it bodes well, because again, there's so many other adventures out there and choices, as well as being associated in a certain group for that in that way is also what the younger generation doesn't like. They'd rather be associated with a variety of endeavors and the versatility of doing other endurance events.
Right. So being an Ironman athlete is kind of like having a job in the Madman era. And now the freelance economy, gig economy, young people, they're going to be doing all different kinds of things.
And exactly. They'll be able to do an Ironman and an ultra run and an adventure race. And, it's like, why would we put a full year of training into something that we already know the outcome to? right? That's the hardest part for a lot of endurance athletes. I can already close my eyes and see myself crossing that finish line of an Ironman. I've done it before, and they're all the same, right? So therefore, I would rather apply my time, my dollars, and all those weekends to something that is unfamiliar to me, to that is more creative or more scary or more dangerous or more Instagram worthy. Or, I mean, again, like, we just got to be real. I mean, we're going to do a lot of these adventures for the coolness factor. And that coolness factor, in my opinion, will run out with an Ironman after a while.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah. I think that, well, I've already seen the numbers be quite flat in their growth. Actually, not negative really, but sort of flat. But, you know, they came, the 70.3 series is what really grew them so quickly, because it became way more approachable, less training hours.
So in your experience of competing at a very high level over many decades, and your experience working with so many athletes over the years, what can you distill from all of that in terms of the mindset principles or the habits or practices that you've employed and that the successful athletes that you've worked with have employed to great benefit? Like, can you canonize like the things that you've seen work for yourself and the athletes that you work with that seem to come up time and time again?
I would say the longevity aspect of it is what works best over time for the athletes. And of course, longevity and over time. But what I mean by that is that the athletes that have the most success and can last the longest in the sport, because a lot of this is outlasting too, is the ones that truly enjoy the training, the journey, the self-exploration, nature, outdoors, daily self-care, and so forth. Those that are just focused on an outcome, on a placing, on a time, they do not last long in the ultra endurance world.
Right.
And I've noticed it for myself, but a lot of the athletes that I coach, if they have certain numbers or times in mind for their, whether it's an Ironman or other events that are measured, and they don't achieve it, that frustration just grows. And those that love the activity, the fitness, the health benefits, the joy of doing it, the outdoors, all the adventure with it, those seem to progress naturally. And they're not outcome driven, they're process driven. And, you know, we hear that in all kinds of facets of life, not being outcome driven, being more process driven. And it works really, really well in ultra endurance athletics, because again, there's too much that can happen on that day. And in that event, whether it's many days or one day, that will affect your outcome. But if you already enjoyed the process, the journey, so call it, then you're already ahead of the game and you're winning.
So what do you do if you're working with an athlete who's very outcome driven to try to nudge them or cajole them into being more process driven?
Well, the important piece there is to understand that they choose to do this every day, right? Back off a little bit and realize and look at yourself and realize this is your choice every day. Now, I understand if your choice is to be outcome driven, but you can only do your best, right? If you compare constantly to others, you're stuck in this quagmire of constantly having to do better and better and better, and that will push out the joy and your best, because you will never achieve that, right? And so the more I can work with them, realizing that family and career and this whole choice of doing this, it's their hobby, not their career, it's not their identity, that then I can gradually move them into more enjoying the process. And quite honestly, I've lost a lot of clients because of this over the years, right? Because we don't see eye to eye on this. And not every workout is going to fit perfectly in line to the outcome in 4 months from now. Like, you're going to have bad workouts. You're going to have bad weeks. You might even have a bad month or two. But we're doing the work and we feel good about it and we're enjoying it. And this is what I would be doing today anyway. So accept that. And you're always learning as well, right? If you're in the process, you're learning about your nutrition, you're learning about your mindset, you're growing, you're already a better person than you were yesterday, right? What was that quote? You never step in the same river twice, because the river's changed and you've changed, right? It's always a different river. And so that's what training in the process is. You are never going to be the same person as you were yesterday, because there's something you learned in that workout about yourself, about your fitness, about your mind, about your nutrition. I can spin that into 20 different angles of why you're a better version.
And so what do you think is the hardest lesson that you've had to learn in this evolution from, super elite, Olympic, German, precision-driven, fitness machine into, masters athlete and coach? Like, what was the hardest piece of advice that you had to digest for yourself?
That the path isn't linear, right? For me, and from a swimming background, everything seemed to fit orderly into a linear progression. If I do this work, these yards, this training, sure, not every single lap, but over the weeks and months, the outcome will come no matter what.
Well, it's such a controlled environment. Exactly. I mean, the world of ultra running versus swimming is, I guess they're both, individual sports that have some level of endurance, but the pool is always the same length. It's
same length.
Yeah.
No wind.
The time standards. It's like you couldn't control an environment more, completely than that swimming, sport. Yeah. And so, it must tap into that precision mindset of like, I do these things. This is the time I need to do.
Yeah. And I used to coach like that with regards to saying, if you put in the work, the results will come. I guarantee it. And I had to accept that doesn't always work. We're all human beings and life gets in the way.
But it depends on your time window though, right?
Your time window, sure. I mean, we could always play that super long window, but I also want athletes to understand that, because it doesn't line up like that, you might have different goals in 18 months from now and different interests and different priorities. And so hopefully you're enjoying the training and the healthy lifestyle versus just must complete race in X amount of time. Otherwise I'm not good. Like, of course you're good. You have 4 kids, you work 60 hours a week, and then you're fitting in this training. That's amazing. There's not a lot of people that are doing that, but you're comparing yourself to the guy who's a lifeguard and has no kids and has, works out all day. Right? And so we're stuck in this world of we're constantly comparing. Well, these guys do half Ironman in under 5 hours. If I don't do it in under 5 hours, I'm not really good. Well, sure, if you look at it in black and white on paper like that, yeah, but they don't work like you do, or have family commitments like you do, or, volunteer at the church like you do, or, it's just a zillion things you can pick at.
Mm-hmm. And so was there a specific moment in your athletic career where you had to meet your maker with that?
Well, I mean, I saw it with Ironman triathlon, quite honestly. I mean, I didn't win my age group in Hawaii for many years, despite knowing that I should be able to. But there's too many factors that come into play and too many outcomes that I'm not in control of, or that little difference was the difference between second, third, and fourth, and fifth, and sixth. I had every place in the time. Over 10 years, I hit them all. But it wasn't that easy to just say, I've put in the work. I've seen the numbers. I know I can hold this wattage. I know I can run this pace. It's not going to give me that result.
Right.
Actually, I had to let go and just sort of train truly for the fun of it and the joy of it in order to win my age group in Hawaii.
Right. That's the lesson. Right?
Yeah.
When you finally were compelled to let go is when you had the success that had eluded you.
And I relied on others. I mean, I had friends who said, no, this year we're going to train differently. Let's go do adventures. Let's go do cool rides and cool different places and create this training that was completely different than when all the years of structure. In May, I must be doing this. And then therefore in August, I'll feel like this. And then therefore in Hawaii, no, we did it completely differently. And we trained differently, and that was what I needed.
Right. How many athletes from your generation of professional triathlon Ironman are still getting after it?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot. There's still some, the Ken Glass of the world still doing Hawaii. But yeah, again, I'm not sure what other adventures they've stepped into, but many of them are still active in some way. Yeah, but not racing or looking for the next adventure the way I am.
Right. All right, well, we got to wrap this up, but let's leave all the athletes and aspiring athletes that are listening and watching with a couple takeaways to fuel the spring months to come.
Yeah. Well, we came out of the winter with some strength work, and hopefully we're on a stronger platform. But because of those hours and those reduced hours over the winter, hopefully we're healthy and fresh and ready to go. But one thing I would tie in is set up these training adventures that I just talked about. Look at your calendar and see maybe a Memorial Day weekend or a July 4th weekend and create something exciting or a mini event that you yourself or your friends or your family and you do to create a training weekend. Enjoy the fitness that you've built and been consistent about over the last months, weeks, whatever it is, and enjoy it with your community. Right? That's something I try to tell my athletes all the time. Create your own adventure, even if you're on a path to something that you've already signed up for. That was a really cool weekend. Or I took a trail that I never take and I ran down it for an extra hour and a half and I saw corners of my park that I never see, right? Or run to a location. Last year I was getting ready for Tolo and other events, and I ran 40 miles in one direction to a town that I usually cycle through, stayed there overnight, great restaurants, cool little places, and then ran back the next day. I know that's a little extreme, but what I'm saying is
back-to-back 40.
Yeah. Nice. So create the adventure, right? Like run 10K or bike somewhere, or, bike somewhere, swim the next day, bike the third day back, or, so that's what I don't like to have too many structured aspects to my training. I like to create mini adventures all the time. And I think if more people did that and their community and understanding their immediate environment better, they'll enjoy the training in a completely different process again.
Yeah, that was one of the things that you encouraged me to do when I was training for Ultraman, is to, when that long bike or that long run, a distance that I'd never done before came up, like to make it, like create a route that would be exciting and interesting, that would be a point to point. So I can't bag out, but also to make it like an adventure in and of itself. And I remember, it was transformative. I'd never, run such a great distance, and I had that 40-mile. I think it was a 40-mile run that you'd put on the schedule. And so I decided to run from Venice to Point Dume and back, like a long PCH, which is like not the best advice in terms of like a road to run on. Yeah. But it made it like super epic to like run along the beach, like, cause I could wrap cause you can see Point Dume, it was like, and that changed my life, to think like, wow, I never would have thought I'd been able to do that rather than running in circles or, something like that.
I tell a lot of athletes on long bike rides to ride to a lunch spot, stop there for literally an hour, learn what that feels like, and then ride home. Right? Like 4 hours one way, sit, hydrate, fuel, enjoy yourself, get lethargic, and then re-engage to ride home. And it's an adventure. Pick a point on a map and explore. You create, the coolest part about endurance athletics is that you create fitness that you can apply on any type of adventure. You're with your kids camping, cool. Do something around that, right? Where you hike in, or you carry an extra load, or you're off getting stuff, or you run to the store to get them a milkshake or something, right? And they're whoa, you did what? Or that you're with friends at a high school reunion and they want to do something cool and you have the fitness to actually just jump in, right? That's what I talk about endurance fitness, that you have the ability to take on adventures that come up and just go do it. That's all around fitness, and that's truly taking it to not just structured events, but like cool tidbits.
Yeah. that is process, not outcome.
Exactly.
It is the journey, not the destination. Right?
It is. And I know it's cliche these days, but for understanding that for athletic outcomes is quite important, because you will have a liberating, sort of freeing experience with it.
Cool. All right, my friend. As always, great to talk to you.
Awesome.
Thanks for dropping the wisdom on
Yeah.
all the athletes out there. Come back and talk to me anytime.
Yeah.
Let's do more live events. Yeah. Let's do more stuff, man.
Yeah. I love talking about this. And as all my athletes and listeners know, it's just, I sit there on my own podcast and talk for an hour and a half, and I have to stop myself.
I know.
To continue.
Like I said last time, I don't know how you do that, man. The Weekly Word.
Yeah.
Everybody check it out. If you want to go super down the rabbit hole and get really granular on these concepts that Chris knows so well, specific to endurance, multisport, training, fitness, lifestyle, all of that, check it out. At AIMP Coach on Twitter.
Yeah.
AIMPcoaching.com. Sign up for his newsletter. He will send you every month tasty tidbits.
December
from his
1,
world.
January 1. I don't know if I'll make January 1. That's a tough one.
And good luck at Alaska, man.
Thank you. We'll get you out there.
Yeah.
We'll get you out there.
We'll figure something out.
Yes.
All right. Cool, man. All right. Peace.